Please take your seats. Before we begin, let me give a very short introduction of Venerable Miao Jing. So Venerable Miao Jing graduated in Canada with a bachelor's degree at the Department of Chemical Engineering at the University of Alberta and a master's degree at the Department of Chemical Engineering at Queen's University. She has served as a chemical engineer at Shell Canada from 2001 to 2005. She also graduated from Tongling Buddhist College and earned her second master's degree in Buddhist Studies at Fo Guang University in Yilan, Republic of China, Taiwan in 2009. In 2009, she was appointed as Abbess of Fo Guang Shan, Philippines. She is part of the board of directors of the Buddhist Life International Association, Philippines. Venerable Miao Jing is the current Dean of the Buddhist Studies Department of the newly founded Guangming College, the first Buddhist college in the Philippines. We are very fortunate to have here tonight, sharing with us the 8 realizations of great beings.
Abbess and Venerable Miao Jing, BLIA executive, friends, and our youth. Good evening to all and auspicious greetings. This is, like I have mentioned a few times to our presidents, Xiaoling Sijia, that this is almost my 3rd time as a monastic back to the Singapore. But the affinity started when I was 4 months old, because I was born and raised in Brunei Darussalam. So I remember my dad. I don't recall that, but my dad told me that when I was 4 months old, he would already bring me shopping in Singapore. So I said I have been eating the food, drinking the water, and playing, shopping. I have fun here in Singapore. So when Venerable Miao Guang called me earlier this year, I just have to say yes. So that was one reason. Then the other was I know that this series of talk has been going on since last year, initiated by Most Venerable of Fo Guang Shan. And I have been hearing about it a lot when I was still in the Philippines. And that's why I want to come and see how it was run so that I can copy. So that was another reason, very valid reason to be here. So start off, Venerable Miao Guang told me, we'll start off with this Sutra of the 8 realizations, which in Chinese is only about 370 characters. But in English, it's slightly longer. However, the important thing is the content that it has. So we will have to go through it bit by bit. Venerable Miao Guang told me that I have to tell a lot of jokes in Champo language. Otherwise it won't click much. So I try to recall what is the champo aga. So here it is. The first one, well, it happened maybe 2 years ago. So I try to recall. There is a few young people sitting in the tea house. So Venerable Miao Guang and I walk into the group to join them. So here it is. One of the youth, I'm not sure if that's you. He was saying that, Sifu is here. We have to use the bell to ding ding. We have to use the bell to ding ding lo. So now I recall that was the Champo language. And then later on today again we have this one person was coming. So Miao Jing was saying, Satu ren lo. Satu ren lo, only 1 people. So I thought, oh wow, yeah. But maybe not the whole evening, just this little bit. So we have to get started, right? otherwise the night is going to be long. So that was pretty much the two main reason that I was here. One is to copy, the other is to say thank you. So maybe a little bit background on why was this sutra being chosen. I have been here, this is my third time again in Singapore after I took my Realisations. First time was with Venerable Miao Jing when we were still in Fo Guang University, taking the mastery program. So we were invited to different campus, so that was a campus tour. It was also the first encounter with young Buddhists here in Singapore and Malaysia. So I found that there is this enthusiasm in the young people who wants to learn Buddhism. And secondly, we also felt that there is this group of English speakers in this area that are very sincere and they read a lot, have regular meeting for studying Buddhism. So that encounter has always been a very important seed as an initiative to launch a series of English speaking sections in our temple. And every time when I met our devotee at Abbess, Venerable Miao Jing, in Taiwan, she would always say that, English speaking one. So we see that again, that was her enthusiasm. I'm like, you speak English too. So I think that was being the lovely part of Fo Guang family, that we are just nearby and we are just beside each other. So that was the first encounter, and this seed has always been sitting in Venerable Master Xing Yun thoughts, and also Most Venerable Tzu Hui. And so last year they launched this series of meeting for English speakers. I heard it was very successful because the program, the contents was specially designed for the local needs. This year is another stage because Venerable Miao Jing told me that we have to start with reading Sutra. So with this in our mind, we know that most of us has already be a Buddhist for a long time. If not 20, maybe 50 years old. 50 years in age in the Buddhist era, in your Buddhist era. So we see that there is already a very strong or a very firm base of study in Buddhism. Then we also think that there is a very well-practiced teaching of humanistic Buddhism, whether you participate in the temple activities, programs, or being part of the delegates to the different conferences in Taiwan or around the world. So we already know that these are the basis of your practice and your learning. Then now these other stages is to bring in, I guess, is to integrate. How do we further emphasize humanistic Buddhism in our practice and in our studies? Last year, I'm not sure if you heard about the research development of humanistic Buddhism in Taiwan, and it was also launched in China, 大觉寺. There is this mid-age young scholar, we would say, professor from Nanjing, 陈明公让教授. Venerable Master Xing appointed him to be our director for the research department on Humanistic Buddhism. Throughout the year, for the last 30 years, that the Venerable Master has always emphasized on this work, or this research work. And it's only Professor Chen's, he really put it into full force. He has invited about 40 scholars from all across China to meet, to talk, to write, to work on Humanistic Buddhism, not just in its thinking, but also in its practice. Because the first basis of thought is Venerable Master Xing is the practitioners. That means the ones who realize Humanistic Buddhism, and to integrate Buddhism from different traditions. And that's why there is this research center, which has been very successful of bringing in the different professors. And also the other one section, they're bringing PhD candidates from Taiwan and China together. And half of them, after the sections or after the research, after the presentations, half of them took refuge in the triple genes. So that has shown young people and scholars, devotees like us, are very firm in our realizations of how Humanistic Buddhism has changed our life and has uplifted our practice. And so that's why this year, this series again is to bring us, I guess, a new perspective. If it's not a border, maybe a border perspective might be a better term for that. To look into Humanistic Buddhism again, or to revise, to review, or perhaps to recap what we already know. I think it's especially important because here in Singapore, there are, I heard a number of us were saying, 200 temples on this small little island. And all of these temples are very active in activities, in providing classes, in offerings, retreat program. So that's why I think it's especially important for us to see how Humanistic Buddhism has already embedded in us and has already been an influence to our life. And so we could be part of the force, the world force, or the force in the world, the global force, to bring Humanistic Buddhism up another level as a practitioner or as a devotees of Fo Guang Shan Temple. So when we read the 8 realizations of Bodhisattva Sutra, 八大人觉经, I'm sure it's very easy for us to download informations. That's why Venerable Miao Jing and I kind of talk about it, that then we come up with this, for this section, a workshop or more like a discussions, because it's easy to read. But then with your practice and with your experience, I think we want to allocate a certain time over these 2 days that we can share your experience, we can share your thoughts, and we can discuss about certain concepts so that it enrich what we already have. That's why we have these 3 worksheets that we have to work on later on. I'm just going to take a few minutes. So that will be the program for the next 2 days. Today, about 20 minutes on introductions, which I'm going to take. We are going to cover it in like 10 minutes. Then we'll take a workshop, so we'll wrap up, we'll get together and we'll work together on the part of our study and part of our practice on this sutra, or the ideas presented in this sutra. Then the next 20 minutes is more like a preview for tomorrow. So what are we going to tackle next section? And we'll do a wrap up as well. So the next 10 minutes we'll be chanting on this sutra together, so that it gives us an overview of what is on our plate for this weekend. Then tomorrow we'll do a review, a workshop, a conclusions, and of course with the 2 days of hard work. If there is not a lot of merit, there will be a little bit of merit that we still have to transfer. Okay. All right. So first thing first, we'll give you a little background on this sutra. I want to use a commentary, as I will state, a commentary on the 8 realizations of Bodhisattva Sutra. Commentary in Sanskrit, we can sometimes refer to this as a sastra. So Sutra, Vinaya, and Sastra is part of the Tripitaka that the Buddha have transmitted onto us, the treasure that we inherit over 2,600 years ago from the Buddha. So we want to use the commentary, not just the sutra, because this commentary was written by Venerable Master Xing, and that's where the humanistic Buddhism, the view on humanistic Buddhism becomes clear, becomes brief, and how he is presenting to us as fellow practitioners. So first thing, when we look at the sutra, this is always the 5 dots when we look at one sutra. So first is the title. In English, it's very easy because it has already been translated. The Great Realisations, the 8 realizations of the Bodhisattva Sutra. But in Chinese, 八大人觉经. So 大人, if you first heard about 大人, so what comes across your mind? How would you describe, interpret 大人? Stage, or officer, the government officer, 大人, bao 大人. And 大人, age, or old age, 老人, 大人, perhaps. So these are the Chinese explanations, which are all right. But because this is a Buddhist sutra, so 大人 refers to as Bodhisattva. So that was one thing that we have to abstract when we are reading the Buddhist scriptures. So 大人 refers to as Bodhisattva. So there must be a reason behind it. Why don't they call it 人 or 小人 or maybe 超大人, right? So there must be a reason behind it, which we will have to explore. So then that was first. In whole, the title of this scripture or this sastra is 佛说八大人觉经. 佛说, what the Buddha said. so 八大人, what does that mean? 8 great sage or 8 great bodhisattva? What does it mean? 8 realizations or 8 ways. It's 8 different types of practice. The 8 ways, 8 realization, 8 knowings of bodhisattva practice. So 八大人觉 means becoming aware, enlightened to. So 觉 is a very interesting word. It does not say 知. It is not knowing, but is aware. So what is that? 知觉. I use a very simple example, then you will maybe tell it. In the Philippines, we have a Buddhist college and we also have a college. And the students are from the province. That means they travel by boat or by car, sometimes overnight, 2 days on the boat before they arrive in Manila. I know our Du Dao has been there to Philippines many times, so he would know. So when they arrive and we say, because one of our objective of training the students or providing educations is we emphasize on life educations. That means how to be independent and how to take care of self and the environment. So we said, now we have to clean the table. So you saw the one hand start mopping. So he look at you first. Dry clothes start mopping. Maybe you should wait it first, wet. Okay. And come back. You mop this table. You mop this table. You mop this table like this. Okay. So then you come back after. Then you ask, have you mopped the table? Yes, I did. I mopped it already. Then you use your hand. But why is it still dusty? Because teacher, you say only mop the table here. Mop the table because I did not show the table. I didn't show the table. Did you have maybe a little feel of 知 and 觉? Maybe a little. 知 is actually a knowledge, a skill. But 觉 expanded, it comes from within. So I think that's why when people eat different dish, you got the recipe, 2 cook got the same recipe and the same ingredients. Why would the 2 cook? One is your sister, the other is your mom. How come your mom's food would always taste better? Very interesting, huh? Because mom did it with love and mom did it with awareness. She is aware of how the fire or how the food would be done properly. Maybe that comes with experience, but more so that comes with awareness or the love that was put into it. So that's why Venerable Venerable Master Xing Yun has always wanted us to be thoughtful. 用心. The heart is not just pumping the blood, but the heart has to be shower. The love does have to be shower from the heart. So that was the title. 觉, that means become aware, be more sensitive. The other one is when you are driving. I'm not sure when you are driving, sometimes you pass by 3 stoplights and then you arrive at home, at your house. Then you thought, did I pass a red light? Did that ever happen to you?
All the time.
All the time, right? Did I pass the red light? How did I get home? How did I drive home safe? So again, 觉, that means you are aware. 觉 means you are aware of the surrounding. So you are not just seeing the road, but you are aware of passengers, of the one walking, pedestrian, the lights, being aware. We like to have higher awareness, so ultimate awareness. That means it's very clear. That is a very clear understanding. Okay. So title, 八大轮觉经, of course we said, is the Tripitaka. Then who is the author of this sutra? The author who said this or who wrote this? 佛说八大轮觉经, who is the author?
Is it Sutra or the Sutra?
The sutra.
Sutra. 佛说的。
佛说嘛, right? So it has to be the Buddha. It's not a trick question. Then the translator. It's important that we know who the translator is, and that means how reliable it is. So there are 4 great translators in Chinese Buddhism. And why is Chinese Buddhism? I know a lot of us, especially the scholar, would say that we have to go back to the original script. But there is really no original script, right, to be honest. Because during the Buddha's time, did anyone record anything? So how are things being recorded? By memorization, right? Through verbal. So we cannot imagine how good people can be, because those are Arhat level. Remember Ananda, Upali, right? These are like Arhat level. Just like Venerable Master Xing Yun, he this year is 89 years old. But last year, he just finished the 16 volumes of Buddhist affinity across 100 years. Can you imagine that? He recalled at age last year, 88, at age 88, he recalled the car fare that he took from Taipei to Beitou, 7 NT. Right? That detail. But more impressively is he recalled who are the senator, who are the government officer during different era or different time or different terms. So how do you explain that? And he remembered the names of the devotees who he has just met like twice. And he said that his memory is only begins to slow down lately. So we just have to believe, right? Because we already met someone this time. So we just have to believe 2,600 years ago, there are people who are just that good in memory. So the translator is important. So a lot of the sutra was kept in Chinese. So we know that there are Pali canons, there are Sanskrit canons, there are even Xixia, Takut language in Central Asia. Canon scripture are written in it and preserved in that language, and of course a lot of these sutra sastra are translated from Sanskrit perhaps into Chinese, and the original script that was used for translations was gone, and so the only record, the only scripture, the only text we have is in Chinese. And that's why Chinese Buddhism is just as important as we learn, as we study, and as we practice Buddhism. So that's why Chinese Buddhism is another area of if we won't use research, we have to say that it's another field of practice to understand, to analyze, to better know the teaching of the Buddha. So translations. The translator in this scripture, one of the 4 great ones. This one is a Persian prince from Persian. Iran. So that during that period of time, maybe around second AD, there are a lot of traveling, a lot of trade between Central Asia, Europe, and China. And so that's how it was being transmitted, or he walked. It was also recorded he might take the boat, right, to enter China. So An Si Gao is his name. He has translated about 100 sutra, about 100 sutra, and he know himself, he's so smart that he knows 30 different languages. So we can trust his translations. And his translation, especially in this sutra, was so good because every verse is only 4 characters. And every character is juice of Buddhism. So the 372 characters in this scripture itself, or is just as good as you have studied. If not the encyclopedia, maybe a very good dictionary for introductory to Buddhism. That's why we have to start off, I guess, this series with this sutra. So An Si Gao translated the prince. So as the Chinese always say, 君无戏言. So whatever he has translated, it must be just as good. Then is the commentator. So who is the one that have written that commentary of this commentary? Venerable Master Xing Yin. This is again not a trick question. So Venerable Master has, in the very early times of his Dharma publications, he has take 3 days to talk about Buddhism, or to talk about Buddhism 3 days in a row. For 20 years in Hong Kong, and for 30 years every year. For 30 years in Taipei. And so and he also went to different university and campuses to give a Dharma lecture to young people, to old people, to anyone really. So he has given 10 sections or 10 lecture, 10 points. He bring out 10 points in this commentary. I think one thing that we want to learn from Venerable Master is when he read the book, he can already come up with the essence of it, the important point. So it's not just studying words by words, but more importantly, what is the important point of this sutra or of this text that we want to learn from it. So Venerable Master is a very good reader, even though he himself has not gone through any educations. That's why he again has been a great inspiration, not just to say our students in the college or in a Buddhist college in the Philippines, but he himself, like his determinations, his enthusiasm on Buddhism, and his caring for each and every one of us is always there. So Venerable Master Xing Yin, he has established how many universities? 5 university and colleges. 5. So one of that is in the Philippines. He told me that this first year we offer full scholarship to the students. So they come from different provinces, boarding, lodging, and tuitions just pay off by a scholar or by our benefactor. Venerable Master told me that this is a school. This is not a shuttle. 这个不是收容中心，这是学校。So what does that mean? I emphasize and I think it over and over and over again. Again, the visions or the missions of the school is to provide educations. And so Venerable Master told me that it is not a shelter to provide food and shelter or and roof to sleep, but it is a place to develop, to explore the talents, to develop the characters, to provide so that a person can be uplifted and the society can be useful to the society. So I think Venerable Master, when he write or comment on this sutra, it is also to provide education, just like the Buddha have done. So the Buddha talked about 八大人觉经, but that was 2,600 years ago, and it was translated maybe 2,200 years ago. For us today in 21st century, it is important to see or to read a text that is relevant to us in today's context. And that's why Venerable Master books is just as important. He won't say that He wouldn't say that, but I think as a disciple of Fo Guang Shan, or as a fellow practitioner or a disciple of Venerable Master Xing, I have to say that what he has written or his word is just as treasurable, as valuable as the Buddha, because it is 21st century. It is what we need most. It is what explains most, and it is what was being most practical to us. So the commentary, we see that the importance of it, because we are not just reading what the Buddha has said, but we are going to translate, or Venerable Master Xing has already helped us to translate into today's language. And he has used many examples. He has used different languages, or he has used different terms to initiate, to motivate us to want to put it, to apply it in our living. One of our professor in the Philippines, she is a linguistic teacher or linguistic professor. She once did a research on the product, and actually she was here last year. Ikin and Wang, both are professor. Their research is to read Venerable Master written work, and to explore how he has used his words to teach, to preach Buddhism. So one of the points that they find is Venerable Master has always been very positive in his words. He chooses very positive words so that it can inspire, so that it can be very practical and inject right into one's heart, not life. No? She said, this is how she described. That means whoever read his writing can feel his passions in Buddhism, and whoever read his work, writing again, can use it immediately and see how it can be beneficial to the person. So again, I want to emphasize that we have to read this commentary, because it is very useful to us to understand what the Buddha wants to teach us, for us who live in this century, or for us who live now in our life. Then actually part of the most important thing is the importance or the context. How is this sutra, or how is this commentary be able to change our life, or be able that we can apply in our practice? So that's why we will work on that through the worksheets. So here is 4 very simple but important verses. This sutra starts off with, for all disciples of the Buddha, each morning and night, recite with a sincere mind these 8 realizations of a bodhisattva. So for all disciples, all of us, what does disciple mean? Those who have taken refuge in triple genes. Yes. So the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Venerable Master has again emphasized that the Buddha is like the light; it shows us the way. The Dharma is like the water; it cleans and it refreshes us. Then the Sangha is like the merit field that we can get a lot of good habits from it. So the triple genes has these benefits. It is like the lighthouse that shows us the way out. So for all disciples of the Buddha, every morning and night, why do we have to read something so short every morning and night? That means it is very important. If we have to read it morning and night, it has to be very good, right? One other thing, so the next word, recite. Reciting is actually part of the practice of Buddhists. There are different ways of practicing. And in the Agama Sutra, it shows 16 different ways. Doing good things is one way. Making prostrations is another way. Chanting the Buddha's name is one. Transcribing scripture is one. Reciting the sutra is one. Especially for Chinese Buddhists. That's why we see that there are a lot of rituals, there are a lot of like 仪轨, like 大悲忏仪轨, 30系念仪轨, all of this, 水陆法会仪轨, all of this is because the Chinese are especially good singer. We recite or we chant. So reciting is very important, and why is that? You have been like attending different Dharma service. So why is reciting important? How did you see it being different, or how has you seen it helping you? Anyone? A lot of people say that I like to come to chanting service because the sifu are so good. Not me, the sifu. Sifu are so good. I heard that a lot of you also went back to our water and land Dharma service every year. Why do you go back? Other than you felt the benefit of it. So why do you go back to attend the Dharma service every year? That you felt, right? You feel that, or we call it click. You felt connected. So through the chanting, 身口意业合一. So chanting, we have to read, we have to use our eyes, we have to use our ear, we have to use our tongues, mouth. All the senses come into one. And we also have to use our mind to contemplate. The Chinese call 随文入观. So as I chant to the words, I contemplate or I visualize it. 随文入观. Did you feel that when you were chanting Amitabha Sutra? Did you see the Pure Land while we are chanting Amitabha Sutra? We do, right? We do. We can feel it. That's why. So reciting is a very important practice. Say the Tibetan also do that. Even the Theravada also do that. Because it brings people together. That's why it's a group cultivation. Reciting is a group cultivation. And one other thing that I also want to mention it is reciting actually in Chinese Buddhism or in Buddhism, really in Buddhism, the master is leading the ceremony and everyone else follow. So we are reciting to the same line together. Did you notice that? So we are like one. It's from the Buddha, the venerables, and the followers or the practitioner. It's like the whole hall, the whole shrine is blend into one. And it could be chance to a certain point that we don't feel like one of our disciples or one of our devotees describe that, I don't feel like I'm in the room anymore. You have that experience? I don't feel like I'm there because my voice and myself are so blend into each other. Especially during the Amitabha chanting sections. I think that's how we said that it got connected, 相应. So recite with a sincere mind. So when we recite, see, there are so many things that they can point out, and especially Venerable Master has pointed out. One is with sincerity. That's what they said. Number two is with meditative mind. We have to visualize, we have to contemplate, we have to stay focused. We have to follow through together. We can't just chant and then think about what am I going to buy after, or if the kids at home is eating lunch. Cannot. It has to stay focused. Then the 8 realizations of a bodhisattva. The other words that we want to mention is the words bodhisattva. So it comes from, it's a compound word. It's a Sanskrit word for two. One is bodhi, one is sattva. So what is bodhi? Awaken. The ed. And sattva? Being. Sentient being. So now my next question is, so who is the enlightened one? Buddha is the enlightened one. So what is the difference between enlightened one and the enlightened being? Just by words or literally.
The one and only enlightened one.
There's only one, the one. Satu lah. The only enlightened one during this time, right? And the enlightened being
And it can be anyone.
can be anyone. So when we say that it can be anyone, are you a bodhisattva? Yes. We are, each and every one of us is a bodhisattva. And so if we are the bodhisattva, that means we are the enlightened being. Are you enlightened? But we just said that we are a bodhisattva.
To be enlightened.
To be enlightened. So that's why bodhisattva, very interesting, right? We have to point it out further, that it is the enlightened being. It is also sometimes the enlightening being. That means together we work on this. And so I find that very important now, because we always say that, you hear the 师父 always say that, 佛光山是个菩萨的道场. So what does that mean? That means this is a 行菩萨道的地方. We practice to bodhisattvahood. What else does it mean? 菩萨道场. That anyone?
Helping ourselves and helping others. Yeah.
Helping ourselves and helping others at the same time, right? So bodhisattvahood, there are three things in practice, right, that we always hear. 自利利他, 自度度他, 自觉觉他. So helping self and others at the same time, benefiting self and others, and enlightening self and others. So we have to always put this three aspects together to complete it. So again, we also always hear that there are a lot of work here in Fo Guang Shan. But is that important to have a lot of work? It is very important because bodhisattvahood is the one way to attain Buddhahood. Right? It's the one way. It's actually the straightforward path. That is a straight path to attain. It does not have to go through different stations. It's a one-stop station or high-speed train. What do you call that again? One stop. Other than all stations. No, does not have to go through all stations. It's just a one stop. So that's why bodhisattvahood is difficult in a way, but actually that's why we learn the bodhisattvahood, right? Or we learn this sutra so that we don't feel difficulties anymore. So with that, with this, we'll just quickly go through the 8 realizations in short, provided by the commentary. Tonight we have to go through at least 2 realizations so that we can catch up the next 3 till 8. So the first one is the nature of this world. It talk about. Then the second one is greed is the cause of suffering. And why do we split it that way? We will later catch up after. So here, I want to quickly show you this diagram. So from ordinary, most of us are ordinary, but yet we are the enlightening one. So from ordinary, so why are we ordinary and awakening at the same time? That's because we are still 退转. Sometimes this is 2015. I want to do 10 good things. I want to say 10 yes to Venerable Miao Mu. I want to be I want to fasting every weekend. I vow to be. And so here come one weekend. That you wake up with a stomachache. I have to call Miao Mu Faster. I cannot. So they still sometimes 退转, right? Sometimes. So that's why we are always in this cycle of wanting, not wanting, can, cannot, maybe, maybe not. We study Buddhism so that we can substance. You heard about sustainability, maintenance. Maintainability. So we have to also sustain our practice, not just the environment, not just our wealth, but also our practice. We call that the wealth of Dharma. Or we also have to sustain our happiness, and we refer that to as our Dharma joy, the true happiness. So whenever we find difficulties, the top arrow is to say, 修行啊. Whenever. And why do we find difficulties? That means we are hitting our limit, our ordinary limit. So if we have to go beyond, then we have to add in more teaching.